It's the Kansas City Royals against the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers won the first two. Johnny Grubb with the game-winning hit in game number 2. A double to deep right center at Royal Stadium, driving in 2 runs. Tigers 5-3. This time it was Aurelio Lopez who was brilliant in relief, succeeding Willie Hernandez. And another display of red-hot hitting by Kirk Gibson of the Tigers. Witness this home run to deep center field in spacious Royal Stadium. Stunning shot of Tiger Stadium in Detroit, Michigan from the Goodyear blimp. Hello again, everyone. I'm Howard Cosell. Welcome to Game 3 of the American Series. Game number 3. Charlie Leibrandt for the Royals, 11-game winner. Against Milt Wilcox, winner of 17 games this year.
To chilly Detroit, I'm Al Michaels. As the Tigers tonight trying to win the pennant, and the Royals trying to do something that no other team in baseball history has done, that is lose the first 2 games at home and then win 3 in a row on the road. Only one team, in fact, overcame a 2-0 deficit, the Milwaukee Brewers in 1982. Just looking at the composition of some of the playoff teams, the Chicago Cubs built very much to the trades of Dallas Green. San Diego through the trades and acquisitions of Jack McKeon. Kansas City, a nice little blend, mainly homegrown, some older stars like Brett and White and some very good young pitching. And then the Tigers, a curious blend too, trades and acquisitions, but basically the heart, the soul, the guts of this team, homegrown, and they all came up about the same time. Lance Parrish, Alan Trammell, and Lou Whitaker, in fact, each made their major league debuts within 3 days of each other. Kirk Gibson was a #1 pick. 2 top pitchers, Morris and Petrie, are homegrown Tigers. They went out in the offseason and acquired their first big-name free agent, Darrell Evans. And then the trade of the year, as far as the Tigers are concerned, and everybody in the American League, Willie Hernandez, the relief pitcher. Basically, the composition of the Tigers, a team a victory away from the pennant. Right now, let's join the PA announcer at Tiger Stadium, John Bell. Tiger Stadium already rocking. First postseason action in Detroit since 1972. Game 3, American League Championship Series. The Tigers have taken the field after yesterday's off day. Neither team working out at Tiger Stadium. Howard mentioning temperature in the mid-50s and dropping in a hurry, and also breezy tonight in Detroit. No threat of rain, though, this evening. There is a threat of rain over the weekend. And if the series continues, we'll have a day game tomorrow and then another day game, if necessary, on Sunday. Rick Farrell.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen.
Throwing out the first ball.
Your attention to the pitcher's mound, where recently inducted Hall of Fame member Rick Farrell will throw out the first pitch.
The starting lineup for the Kansas City Royals, leading off Willie Wilson, batting second, Pat Sheridan, batting third, the batting leader of the team, George Brett, batting fourth, George Orta. He got a triple during this series, 1 of 2 extra base hits for the Royals. And then comes Darrell Motley. After Motley, the man they're hoping will explode, Steve Balboni. Then comes the second baseman, Frank White, who loves this ballpark. After him, the catcher, Don Slaught. And finally, the shortstop, Onyx Concepcion. To set the defense, Alfalfa.
All right, Howard. Darrell Evans is at first base. He started game 1 at first, then game 2 at third, back at first. Lou Whitaker at second base. Alan Trammell is the Tiger shortstop. Had a perfect night at the plate in game 1. And Marty Castillo, as was the case in the opener when they faced Bud Black, is the third baseman. In left field is Larry Herndon. They platoon out there with Jones. Chet Lemon, the everyday center fielder. And around in right is the former Michigan State All-America in football, Kirk Gibson. Now making a pretty good mark in this sport. Lance Parrish is back of the plate. And on the mound for Sparky Anderson's Tigers is Milt Wilcox, who had his best season, 17-8, with a pretty high ERA for a man who won better than 2 of 3 decisions. Sparky is hopeful that he sees a little bit of deja vu tonight. In 1970, when Wilcox was 21 years old, he won Game 3 of the National League Championship Series for Sparky against Pittsburgh. Now, those 3 umpires, Deegan, Bible, and Crystal, worked the plate first and second in Kansas City. They have been brought to Detroit, and supplementing those will be 3 from the area here. At third down the line and in right, Cossey, Brunchy, and Zivik. So again tonight, you've got the former American League umpire, Bill Deegan, who worked the plate in Game 1 and worked the plate in Game 2, also working the plate in Game 3. There's been no rotation here. And it's worked so far because Deegan has been involved in very few, I wouldn't even call them altercations. There's been some griping. Willie Wilson hopped at the plate the other night when he was called down on strikes, but on balance, he's done a great job calling the balls and strikes. Here we go as Wilson starts things by fouling it away.
I think the one thing we will have to note tonight, though, Al, is that Milt Wilcox has to get the low pitch, and so does Charlie Leibrandt, and Bill Deegan has had a very consistent strike zone, but it's been a high one.
And that's the last thing a good sinker ball pitcher really needs to see.
Well, Wilcox doesn't sink the ball. He's just a basic cut fastball, has a great fork ball, and has a slow curveball, no slider. Has had some arm problems periodically during the season.
Fouled away. He's had 3 cortisone shots.
Well, and also he used DMSO, which is a drug you just kind of paint on your arm. It's supposed to take away inflammation.
The dimensions of the ballpark before you. This is a home run heaven, except for dead center field, as you can see.
A lot of room out there, Howard.
Just low, 1 ball, 2 strikes, and an example perhaps there of a borderline pitch that might be a strike in the book of some umpires.
Well, again, with that inside protector, and that's a kind of a borderline pitch, but it's the one, if you're a pitcher, you want. And of course, if you're a hitter, you want them to call it a ball. It makes it a little bit easier to hit.
Still 1 ball, 2 strikes the count.
The really unusual thing about Milt Wilcox is that, as you said, Howard, this is a hitter's, at least historically, this has been a hitter's ballpark. He had an ERA on the road of about 5.5 runs a game, and here
he's been invincible,
a little
relative.
bit over 2.5 runs a game. Not something you'd really figure, but I talked to Lance Parrish. He said he's been able to make the pitches on the outside part of the plate and get it to hit at the center field.
Pop foul. Castillo racing over and does not make the play. Good effort, though, by Castillo, going all the way over to the tarpaulin and just running out of room. Look at a nice hand.
So the tarpaulin obtrudes here at that point, and if you go down the line a little further, there'll be another obtrusion in the form of the bullpen. Maybe a flaw in the construction of the diamonds.
Well, this is one of the older parks. In fact, this park first opened in 1912. Bullpens on the playing surface in foul territory. 2-2.
What do you think, Al?
Age a problem, I guess. Wilcox ready, and the 2-2 pitch is grounded to short. It's Trammell over to first, and it's dug out by Evans to save Trammell. Well documented has been Trammell's shoulder ailment through the second half of the season. The fact he is not throwing as well. That was a pretty routine play. Normally, even with his problem, he would make that play without a problem, and that time Evans, though, was able to scoop out and throw in the dirt.
If there's anything you can say about Alan Trammell, not only does he have an outstandingly strong arm, it's very accurate. Most of his throws, you can just put the glove right about belt high, and in this series, he's been all over the place for him.
Sheridan fouling it away. Pat Sheridan last season started the year in the minors, came up in May, and his first major league hit was a home run off Milt Wilcox in the middle of May of '83. ball, 1 strike the count. Milt Wilcox, 34 years old, pitched for Sparky briefly in Cincinnati, and then he was traded to Cleveland, and then spent some time with the Cubs in '75, and then went back to the minors. Tigers picked him up in 1977, and he has been here since, and he has been right around 500 every year but this one. 2-1.
He didn't get that one.
No,
In a
that's
high
little bit
strike
high.
zone, it was too high. That bears out your point about Sheridan tiring that you made earlier in the series.
Hit foul, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, 6'3", but only 175 pounds, and I think we'll see Pat go back to the dugout to get a new bat. Ball in on his fist, shattered his bat.
You're 6'3", right?
Yes,
What was your lowest playing weight?
about 193 pounds.
Lowest, huh?
In fact, when I broke in the major leagues, I weighed about 208 pounds, and then started doing underwear ads and had to go down to 190.
And
It's only a joke, only a joke.
what are you now?
About the same.
So you're ready for that comeback, in other words.
You mean baseball or underwear? No, I just think, and I talked to Lee May, he just thinks that as Sheridan gets a little bit older or put a little bit more weight on, he'll be able to play that full 162-game schedule.
Called strike 3 as he gets a fastball over the outside corner. So Sheridan went all the way back to get a new bat, and then it sits on his shoulder.
And that ball's a good maybe 3-4 inches outside. Again, if you're a pitcher, you want that pitch. If you're a hitter, you don't know now the rest of the game whether you're going to have to swing at a ball a little bit off the plate or a little bit high or a little bit low. It's one of the few pitches in the 3 games that Bill Deegan has umpired that he has given to the pitcher that hasn't been a strike as far as being an inside or outside. We saw that last night if you were watching the Cub game. Gary Matthews called out on a pitch about 6 inches outside in the first inning.
Here's Brett on a pitch that was just about off the plate by the same distance, and it was called a ball. 1-0. George Brett, 284 during the regular season. Wilcox with gyrations on the mound. The delivery, and then he'll always take that little hop at the end. And as you can see, he did not go all the way this year, pretty much by design. Sparky Anderson said you're going to work 6 or 7, and out you come. And he stuck to his word, did Sparky. 2-1.
Do you feel that was outside?
Yes, but at least he's being consistent.
Maybe it caught
But it
part
really
of,
does confuse
Maybe
me.
it caught part of the plate and then tailed out. Where we are.
Popped up, shallow right. Here comes Gibson. And Wilcox has sent the Royals down in order in the top of the first inning. Game 3 after a half in Detroit. Kansas City nothing. And the Tigers coming up.
Tigers leading off, Lou Whitaker, steady going, followed by Alan Trammell, just a brilliant player and batsman. Batting third, the slugging Kirk Gibson, red hot. Batting fourth, Lance Parrish, the home run leader and RBI leader of the team. Batting fifth, Larry Herndon. And batting sixth, Barbaro Garbe, so useful as the DH and in other capacities. Batting next, Jet Lemon. Then comes Darrell Evans, and finally there is Marty Castillo, again to Al.
And defensively, that's Steve Balboni at first base for Kansas City. Second baseman, Frank White. And his double play partner throughout the second half of the season, Onyx Concepcion. George Brett, still somewhat bothered by that hamstring pull at third. In the outfield, Darrell Motley is in left field. He's the fellow who spent last year in the Detroit farm system on loan. Willie Wilson in center, and Pat Sheridan in right field for Kansas City. Back of the plate is Don Slaught. And the pitcher is Charlie Leibrandt. Leibrandt made his major league debut with Cincinnati in 1979. That was the year after Anderson left there. And Charlie did get into the league championship series that year, facing one man against Pittsburgh. Pirates sweeping the series, but he's been up and down since. And then over to Kansas City in a trade. This year, Leibrandt started the season at Omaha, and he was 7-1 with a 1.24 ERA in AAA. So the Royals called him up in May. He was 11-7, and he, like Wilcox, did not complete a game this year. So Wilcox started 33, Leibrandt started 23. Between the two of them tonight, you've got 56 starts and no complete games. Lou Whitaker, Alan Trammell, and Kirk Gibson. In the bottom of the first inning, Tigers in each of the first 2 games have scored 2 runs in the first. And Whitaker gets him started, but hits it foul down the left field line. Just foul, 0-1.
But enough to scare them. They've had enough of these quick starts of the Tigers. The Tigers have been doing that all year long. Getting the quick start, getting the leadoff batter on base. There have been 20 innings in this series. Detroit has had its leadoff man reach base 9 times. Has scored 11 runs in those innings.
No balls and 2 strikes now on Whitaker, American League Rookie of the Year in 1978. In the air to shallow center, and it's Willie Wilson looking up into the night sky, pulling it in. 1 away here in the bottom of the first inning, and Alan Trammell coming up, 4 for 8 in the 2 games.
Oh, the Hitman is back. Once the Motor City Cobra, now the Hitman as originally entitled. And in the best fettle of his life. And punch like you, Jim.
Trammell bluffs a bunt to draw Brett in, takes a strike, and the count is 0-1.
Keeps his left hand down. Mistake.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, next blow, huh?
Trammell 5 for 6 against Leibrandt in his career. Allen, the only 300 hitter on the Tigers this season. Count 2 balls and 1 strike.
The amazing thing about Alan Trammell, and I thank Alan Roth for, we were talking before the game, he hit 300 against both right-handers and left-handers, hit 300 both on the road and at home. Pretty consistent year. Day and night. I mean, he hit 300, I mean, all year. Not just at the end of the season.
Sparkaroo. You know, the lineup he started, the basic lineup he started in the first game of this series, was the first time this season he used that lineup. He's used the same lineup only 9 times this year. Ralph Houk, for instance, used his basic lineup, as we look at a foul, just foul, 69 times this season. That shows you the difference in philosophies. Both men exceptional managers.
Well, also, I think it points out the depth of the Tigers to win 100 games,
No question.
104 games, and be able to utilize and use as many players as they've been able. And we've seen it through the first 2 games for defensive and offensive purposes.
Full count. That first game ended the other night. They had people like Dave Bergman and Rusty Kuntz and Doug Baker and Tommy Brookins in the game. So it's true when they talk about the Tigers using all 25 as Trammell draws the walk. Here in Detroit, as Gibson comes up, they're not talking about a game tomorrow. You walk around town and everybody's talking about the game on Tuesday. It's the opening night of the World Series.
Can't blame them.
Of course, that's understandable. I'm sure that a lot of people in Chicago were talking there wouldn't be a game 4 in their playoff series, and there is. I think what Charlie, and there we see Charlie Leibrandt, what he's been able to do in those 23 starts is at least 6 innings in 18 of them. That's his job tonight, to get to the 6th or 7th inning and have his team in the ballgame. Now, hopefully, you'd like to see him put a lot of runs on the board if you're Dick Hauser, but if that's not the case, he has to do what Ed Woodson did, which is to keep his club in the game and hope that they come up with some runs.
Since he doesn't throw heat, it's been his great talent to keep his team in the games that he's pitched with finesse.
That's ripped into right for a base hit. Alan Trammell will stop at second as the throw comes in. So the Tigers, who've got 2 on Tuesday in the first, 2 on Wednesday in the first, have 2 men on in the first tonight. And Lance Parrish coming to the plate.
It's just a little fastball. Low fastball to a low ball hitter. Gibson been extremely hot. 2 big hits in the second game. Strokes it in the right field for a base hit.
Well, a hit here, there'll be quick action, and you can bet Hauser isn't going to ride a long time with anybody. He's struggling.
1-0 the count.
Be a quick hook tonight.
And you can see right there, Howard, that that's the pitcher that Charlie Leibrandt thinks he has to have. And throughout this series, and I'm not second-guessing Deegan, he just has not called a low pitch. For Charlie to be effective, he has to have that pitch. Fastball around the knee. Otherwise, he's not going to be effective.
1-1.
Went upstairs and probably too high and outside.
A little screwball just took a little bit off.
Chased it.
One thing you wonder, both with Wilcox and Leibrandt, Milt hasn't pitched in 9 days, and he's basically a control pitcher. Charlie hasn't been out there in a week. I think that might have something to do with their control.
2 balls and a strike on Parrish, who led the team in homers with 33, led him in RBIs with 98.
Well,
American League's all-star catcher this season.
Sorry, Al, this is an Earl Weaver situation, the 3-run home run.
He could have had 3 had we played Tuesday night's game in this park. 2 long outs and a homer for him in KC, but he grounds this one and backhanded nicely by Brett to White for 1, and that's all. But a nice play by Brett to save a run.
Overhead camera. Nice backhand play by George. What makes it even nicer is that with Kirk Gibson, with his exceptional speed, if he doesn't have some on this throw, Gibson, as you see, just about beats the throw as it is. Excellent
call. Tough call. Because George had to take 2 steps after gathering the ball in, then whirl around, take an additional step back, getting off the throw to get what he had on the throw. And on the replay, it looked like either way.
Herndon, who hits left-handers very well and has hit in this park very well despite an off year. He had 314 at Tiger Stadium. Overall this season, he batted .280, and he had to come on at the end to do that. Up and away. Herndon hit a home run in Kansas City. There's Trammell at third. Parrish at first, held on by Balboni. We have 2 out. In the bottom of the first inning, no score. If you're just joining us, the Royals went out in order in the top of the first.
Garbe on deck. He's tough if he should pitch carefully to Herndon and Morton. Good pitch.
1-1. Charlie Leibrandt, through the course of the game, pretty much expressionless. They talk about him in the clubhouse as being a tough competitor and all of that, but as you watch his facial expressions, they will hardly vary through the game. 2-1.
Well, he's a pitcher, Val. He's not a thrower. I mean, he has to really concentrate. He knows what he's trying to do. He's not a type of guy that can get behind the hitters and just throw fastballs and overpower them. So he's thinking. He has a game plan.
By the way, Jim, in contrast to the Morris-Petrie syndrome, there hasn't been 1 pitch thrown so far tonight in the 90s.
Well, we're not talking about 2 overpowering pitches.
Right.
We're talking about guys that just have to go out there and pitch their game and make good pitches. Otherwise, they're going to be ineffective.
Fouled back in the count. 2 balls and 2 strikes on Herndon. Dick Hauser's made a change, by the way, in his pitching rotation. He'll go to Bud Black, the starter in Game 1 tomorrow, if there is tomorrow for Kansas City. Originally, he was talking about Mark Gubazar, the rookie, but he'll go back with Black, and then if we have a Game 5 on Sunday, back to Saberhagen, the 20-year-old who pitched so well the other night. And Herndon strikes out swinging. So Leibrandt gets into a jam in the bottom of the first, but works out of it. And for the first time in the series, Detroit does not score in the first. No score. Good inning. Let's get the thoughts of the opposition on Wilcox. Here's a summation from Kansas City manager Dick Hauser.
Wilcox is a quality pitcher. I've seen a lot of him over the years. He was with Cleveland. He's over here now. He's a finesse guy. Split-fingered fastball, straight change. He'll sidearm our right-handed hitters. We need our left-handed bats, Wilson, Brett, Sheridan, especially our left-handed bats, to have a big night for us tonight.
Reminder, college football coming up tomorrow. Nebraska, Oklahoma State. Those of you in the South will be seeing Georgia, Alabama, and Lee Grosscup tells me that'll be a great one in Birmingham. Then October 13th, Texas takes on Oklahoma. National telecast. Both Saturdays beginning at 3:30 Eastern time.
How is the Cupper?
I talked to the Cupper today. He's great. He wants to know if you think you ought to make a comeback with the Titans.
Well, Nebraska's got to reprove itself in the wake of the Syracuse debacle from their point of view. Nebraska, that is. Oklahoma State, tough, unbeaten, seasoned, and looking to prove that they can capture that difficult conference title.
Meanwhile, the Tigers trying to capture the American League title in the second inning. Orta leading things off. Count 0-1. Orta, Motley, and Balboni facing Wilcox, who set the side down in order.
There have been only 2 extra base hits executed by the Royals thus far in this series. A double from Gray, you'll remember that blow. Triple for Orta as you look at a ball fouled off.
And it was McRae and Orta who spent the season platooning in the DH role. But with the paucity of left-handers for Detroit, in fact, the Tigers did not have a left-hander start in a game all season. It's Orta's series for the most part. McRae, though, was able to get in the other night because the Tigers went to Hernandez.
That deficiency was what killed Atlanta in the playoffs a couple of years back against the Cardinals, you'll recollect.
Didn't it, though? Braves went into that series without a left-hander on the roster. And they went out in 3. Orta, that sort of reflects what Kansas City did here. Remember?
Yeah, they love this ballpark.
Royals won 5 out of 6 in this park. Counting the playoffs, Detroit won all 8 in Kansas City. Road field advantage.
Well, they outscored them like 35-21 here, and the Tigers went into Royal Stadium and scored 40 runs, and Kansas City only scored 19. Almost averaged Kansas City did here in Tiger Stadium 6 runs a game. They're going to have to do that tonight. It would make it a lot easier to win.
2-2. Oftentimes that really has to do more with how a club is going at that particular point as opposed to head-to-head or playing particularly well in the ballpark. That can sort of be deceiving, but it is ironic that the home team has won only 1 game all year. And that was the very first one, which Detroit won here. Line drive right to Evans, 1 out.
But in that vein, Al, Frank White, for instance, loves this ballpark. He can get those upper-deck home runs that would be easy flyouts in Royal Stadium.
Funny in a way, some of the Tigers look like they play a little bit better on AstroTurf than on natural grass.
Well, that just speaks again, as we said, about their team speed. Here, you hit it on the ground here, and it's tough to get it through the infield. I mean, heavy grass.
Here's Motley with 1 out and the base is empty. Looking at a strike. 0-1 on Darrell. Motley, one of the new puzzle parts put together this year. Remember, for a long time, the Royals in the outfield went with Amos Otis in center, and Willie Wilson had been playing left. He swings and misses, and then with Otis gone, they were able to move Wilson to center. Left field opened up. Motley's filled that role for the most part.
A little curveball in the book on Motley. You want to get him out of the strike zone. Throw him breaking balls low and away and fastballs up and in.
And down he goes. 2 strikeouts for Wilcox. 2 down. George Kell. Great Tiger third baseman, now a Tiger broadcaster.
Marvelous guy.
This one's Swift in Arkansas.
Ralph Houck made a deal with George Kell. He was retiring as manager, as everybody knows. And Kell is an automobile deal out here, and he gave Ralph a heck of a deal. But Betty Houck, Ralph's wife, will continue the story after this pitch.
As is Balboni leading off. 1-0.
It had one defect that she didn't like, so they rejected the car. George said, fine. Mrs. Yorkie comes in and gives Ralph a brand new car with everything just the way Betty Houck wanted. So off they went to Florida, retired now, but in the new car.
Excellent curveball there. What's nice, and you can tell that maybe this is why Milt Wilcox won 17 games. He throws a fastball, he misses, and he comes back with about as good a curveball as you can throw.
Good fastball in the count. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
It looked like Balboni was looking for that curveball. A little bit late.
Look at him after the All-Star game.
I think what even makes that 8-6 record, he won his first 6 ball games.
Right.
So obviously after those first 6 wins, he struggled in the first half.
Struggled in the middle of the season, came on pretty well at the end. 3-part year for him. And we were talking about Wilcox before, and if you go through his record, 13-12, 12-10, 13-11, 12-9, 12-10, 11-10. Every year right around the same figure, and then this year the beneficiary of some very good support, and he's been pitching a little bit better than he had in the past. Full count on Balboni.
This is a ballpark where Steve should erupt as we look at this special view of Tiger Stadium.
And up high, just missing with a breaking ball for ball 4. First Royal base runner as Balboni goes to first base with 2 down in the 2nd inning. We'll see Frank White after you look at the pitch here.
Now here's a guy who loves this ballpark, as I mentioned. You know, Al, you were going through the past records of Wilcox. There was a press conference at our hotel yesterday, and you were elsewhere occupied. Milt Wilcox was there, Dick Hauser and Frank White. And Milt Wilcox was talking to the writers who were talking to him about the fact that this year he had won 17. I tell you, Jim Palmer, he sounded exactly like you when talking to them. He talked about the luck involved in pitching from year to year, which you've so often done. Isn't that true?
Definitely. They averaged 6 runs a game when he pitched, which obviously makes it easier to pitch. Another thing, he was healthier this year. He pitched more. Maybe not in terms of complete games, but he was out there, even though he had the cortisone shots, used the DMSO, he got out on the mound, and he's made great pitches almost all year, except that little bit of time in the middle of the season now when he struggled. Can't win games if you're on the bench.
No balls, 1 strike.
I know about that.
And 1-1 now on White.
Why were you on the bench?
It's not a bad character right there.
Don't ignore you ignored that sign, Howard.
You're up all night painting it. I mean, come on. 1-1 pitch. And the count is 1-2.
Everybody knows from Monday Night Football that Roone Arledge and his minions come in the day ahead of the day, and they spend all night painting the sign.
That's what I've always read.
I know.
Balboni at first. No Carl Lewis he, and so Evans can play behind him. Just missing, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes. See that flick of the foot by the plate umpire Deegan as he looked over to the dugout as if to indicate inside. Now Wilcox has gone full, and that means Balboni will take off for the pitch. 3-2 and 2 down. Royals and Tigers are scoreless. 2nd inning. Off day for the National League today. They're back in action tomorrow night in San Diego, game 4.
Royals have not yet led at any point in this series.
White pops it in the air, shallow left. Trammell and Herndon are both calling, and finally it's Herndon. And the crowd's so noisy here, they were having trouble hearing each other. Herndon is rather soft-spoken anyway, so he had to get close to Trammell before Allen could hear him and move out of the way. So in the inning, they leave one. As Balboni is stranded, and Herndon just barely able to hold on, make the catch, and retire on the side. After 1.5, KC nothing, Detroit nothing. Season in the minors, working here in the playoffs. Thoughts of Liebrandt, of Dick Hauser?
Charlie Liebrandt is a guy that won 10 games with the Cincinnati Reds a couple of years ago. In spring training this year, pitched 1 inning in an A game because we had to look at our young pitching. But he went to Omaha, was 7-1 with a 1.29. When we got in trouble with our pitching early on in the season, we went to Charlie Liebrandt, and he's one of the reasons we're here.
And Liebrandt was able to escape a jam in the first inning by striking out Herndon. Now Barbaro Garbey starts things in the bottom of the second inning. Garbey is the platooning DH in the playoffs. The left-handed DH, John Grubb, was the big hero in game 2 with that 2-run double in the 11th inning. Barbaro Garbey from Cuba, part of the Freedom Flotilla as he made his way to this country in 1980. Involved in a couple of incidents in his minor league career. In his past, apparently, he was involved in the throwing of games in Cuba, and they looked into that. Did the National Association, as it's grounded off the glove of Liebrandt, and he's safe at first base. Frank White coming up with the ball, but had to eat it. So shot back through the middle off the bat of Garbey, and he's aboard.
Low fastball in the middle of the plate. Pitcher's the 5th infielder. Not exactly well prepared for that line drive. Of course, my theory was always protect yourself first and try to catch it second. But the good fielding pitchers probably knock that ball down, keep it in front of him, and get it out.
So he's at first, and Lemon, who's hitless in the series, coming up with Garbey at first base. Just to finish the situation with Garbey, he was subsequently cleared of those charges as Lemon takes a strike, and then got involved in an altercation with a fan in the minor leagues last year as well. And was suspended, but reinstated now in his rookie season with Detroit. Foul back, and the count is 0-2.
Here's a man who's been struggling in this series. Early today, took all kinds of batting practice, determined to break out of it. Chet Lemon.
Well, he's hit left-handers exceptionally well this year, but struggled against right-handers, so I suppose if he is going to come out, at least you have a left-hander on the mound.
That was much earlier today. That was well before normal batting practice. Lemon coming out to take some extra hitting.
Well, he's always been one of those guys. I remember when I was playing with the Orioles, if he came out, he'd be out there an hour, even in Baltimore, out around 3:30 with Gates Brown, just taking extra hitting. He's that type of guy, one of the hardest workers on this team.
Rip foul. Still a ball and 2 strikes on Lemon.
You mentioned the poor fielding effort by Liebrandt on the Garbey drive. One of the things I always liked about your team, Jim, you knew when a pitcher had a defensive weakness how to make it part of your game plan, offensive strategy to take advantage of it. Witness the way you bunted on Tommy John. Right?
That's the way we figured, the only way we could beat him. There you saw just a kind of a one of your mediocre moves to first. Liebrandt not exceptionally that well of holding guys on. 9 out of 11 stolen on this year.
It's softly down to third. Brett goes to White, and that's all they'll get, settling for the force to erase Garbey. So Lemon is now 0 for 11 in the series, but he's at first base with 1 away. And the batter will be Darrell Evans. Evans, the first big-name free agent the Tigers signed. Picked by 18 clubs in all when he played out his option after last season with the Giants, a year in which he hit 30 homers. Got off to a pretty hot start for Detroit, then kind of tailed off and settled in and wound up with a low average, 232, but still 16 home runs and 63 RBIs. So a lot of action as the DH, but you can move him around as Sparky is doing in this series. First and third. A couple of years he played left field for the Giants when McCovey was at first, and even spent a few games at shortstop in recent seasons due to injuries of other teammates.
Had an interesting talk with him. He said he really felt when he came over here, he got a big contract, he had 30 home runs last year. They expected him to hit a lot of home runs. He said he was trying to hit every ball in the right field stands here instead of going the other way, getting his pitch to hit. And then he worked with Gates Brown, who's the batting instructor. Instead of trying to hit every ball in the right, went in the left field a little bit more, and his average came up. The home runs came naturally because he's a good low ball hitter. In fact, he hit a couple balls the other night that were probably in Royal Stadium were outs, but here it might have been home runs.
3-0 the count.
I think another thing you pointed out the other night, how he maybe didn't hit as many home runs, didn't hit for the average, but he does walk, doesn't swing at too many bad pitches.
Exactly. Led the team in walks, in fact, to 75 this season. Strike 3 times in his career. Evans has drawn more than 100 walks.
That's the one thing that Earl Weaver always used to stress when he managed at Baltimore. When guys aren't hitting, you can't help the club by taking pitches and walking. But what seems to happen is that you press even more and you start swinging at bad pitches.
He rips this one toward left center field for a base hit. Willie Wilson deep to cut it off. Evans with a wide turn, holds with a single as Lemon goes to third. So again, the Tigers, as was the case in the first inning, are threatening. First and third and 1 out.
Well, we talk about being patient. He's a low ball hitter. He just went the other way with it. Not a bad pitch, but not a real good pitch if the hitter is patient enough to take it the other way. You try to pull that ball, it's a double play.
Who was the best low ball hitter you ever saw?
You mean quality hitter? I mean, the best low ball hitter I ever saw was Joe Pepitone.
Really?
Every time I threw him a low fastball, it was a home run. That's pretty good low ball hitter.
Reggie was a good low ball hitter.
Still is.
And a great low ball hitter was Stargell. Here's Castillo. Marty Castillo, who started only 14 games in the regular season at third, with the infield playing at double play depth. About Sparky Anderson, he's always been sort of a hunch player in a way, and his hunch coming into this series with that revolving door at third would be that Castillo would be the guy against left-handers, even though he'd only started those 14 games. Marty had a couple of hits the other night.
Not a whole lot of power, but kind of sprays the ball around. I think maybe one of the things he was thinking about, of course, Tom Brookins has played a utility role. Had a pulled hamstring that bothered him off and on all September. I think he could count on Castillo where he couldn't count on Brookins.
And as we pointed out the other night, his third baseman, according to Sparky anyway, of the future meaning next year, will be Howard Johnson. Good offensively, not very good defensively at this point.
He gave us a very impressive pair of performances in some games we did early.
Yes,
remember?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Home run power.
That's grounded down to short. Concepcion to White and back to first, not in time. Ball really not hit that sharply. Concepcion waiting for it, and then by the time White was able to turn it over the hard charging Evans, Lemon has scored to make it 1-0.
Well, Lebrand made the pitch he wanted. Good sinker away. As you said, Al, not hit hard enough. You're going to see a great effort by White right here on the pivot. Pretty close play at first. You can call it yourself. Looked like he was safe by about a half a step.
Good call. 1-0 here is Lou Whitaker outside. So the Tigers are in front again. One to nothing Detroit. 2 down. Castillo at first. 2-0 on Whitaker.
I think here, if you're a veteran pitcher or you're an experienced pitcher, you look at Milt Wilcox, you're pitching against him. The last thing you want is a big inning. You look at his ERA, he knows he gives up 4 runs. What you want to do is keep your club in the game. You don't want to to start walking guys and have that big inning.
Same task that Saberhagen had, and he succeeded.
He certainly did. He gave them a chance to win. They just did not take advantage of the opportunity.
You see a graphic like that, you get some idea of Detroit in this ballpark.
Runner goes, good jump. Pitches low and outside. Slots, throws, sails into center field. And Castillo goes to third. So Castillo running, got a great jump on Leibrandt. Castillo stole only one base in the regular season.
Well, again, we talked about Sparky's ingenuity. He knows Leibrandt doesn't have a good move. He goes on his first move. The base is easily stolen. The throw is into the runner. Looked like it might even hit him in the back and into center field. Castillo gets up and is on his way to third base.
As aggressive a manager as we've talked about the prior 2 games as there is in the big leagues.
Stolen base and an error on Slot. And the 3-1 pitch now is a breaking ball and a half swing, little tapper, trouble, who's going to cover first? Leibrandt just does get there. Confusion as to who was going to come up with the ball and who was going to cover. But Leibrandt was able to rapidly move to the bag as Balboni shovels it to him. And in the inning, the Tigers settle for 1. Watch it again here.
Excellent play by Charlie. He realizes he can't get to the ball. Balboni makes a nice shovel throw. Close, but he's out.
So the Tigers draw first blood again. Royals come up in the third. Detroit leads 1. They do, yeah.
He can hit.
Kind of guy that with his bats kept himself in a few games in his career in which he might have come out for a pinch hitter in the middle innings. Slot to lead off as we go to the third. 1-0. Slot, Concepcion, and Wilson.
There's Jim's point about the low strike. That looked good.
Well, I think if Wilcox had his druthers, he'd rather get the low strike than the high one because that's where he's most effective.
Don Slaught is the only Royal with 3 hits in the series. 3 for 8 at 264 during the regular season.
I think that exemplifies a point is that those hits have been singles. And in Royal Stadium, basically, Kansas City doesn't have that kind of power. You talked about it the other day. You talked about they're trying to draft people. They don't want to go to grass there because their whole organization is based on speed, maybe not hitting the home run with the exception of Balboni or Brett. Here in Royal Stadium, a few more of their batters are home run threats, specifically a guy like Frank White.
Tiger Stadium.
Excuse me, you're right.
Two balls, 2 strikes on Don Slaught, former UCLA catcher. Platooned last year with John Wathan and took over the role full time in 1984. In a year, as George Brett said during our pregame show, in a year that the key words in Kansas City were transition and rebuilding.
You put it very well.
That's hit foul, and the count still 2 balls and 2 strikes on it. Tiger Stadium packed. Holds about 54,000 to look around this venerable ballpark, about a mile or so from downtown Detroit.
What a history to this ballpark.
Grounded to first. Evans backs up, overhands to Wilcox. 3-1 in the scorebook. 1 out in the third inning.
You were here in 34 when they threw the debris at Medwick, weren't you, Al?
Center field bleachers.
There we see Evans. He knows he has plenty of time, so he chooses to take a step backwards. The basic play for the pitcher, something you do every day of spring training. Get over to first.
Onyx Concepcion. Castillo is playing in on the grass at third. Strike. Look at the third baseman, Concepcion, type of guy who will lay one down if you're not honest at third. And quickly Wilcox on top, no balls, 2 strikes.
hasn't had a good series, unfortunately, because Al called it right on the button. He was charged with an error that could have been called either way.
Fly ball to center field, and it's Lemon getting his usual terrific jump and making it a very routine play.
And that error, unfortunately, cost heavily.
That led off the second game with a chopper hit by Whitaker in an inning in which the Tigers got 2. Willie Wilson grounded out in the first inning. Strike. Quite a, remember that confrontation with Dempsey and the Tigers, the supposed confrontation here in June, according to some remarks Rick supposedly made?
Never bothered Rick. He's a scrapper.
Well, he certainly is.
Grounded foul, and the count, no balls and 2 strikes.
That's
Howard,
that
earlier,
bullpen obtrusion that I don't like. How do you feel about that, Jim?
I think we ought to ask Earl Weaver. We ought to give him a call. I mean, we had a game forfeited because of those outside mounds out in Toronto. They kept covering it with a tarp. Finally, Marty Springa had a call. Earl took his team off the field, and I wasn't there to counsel him. I had gone ahead because I was pitching the next day and ended up forfeiting the ball game, losing the protest and the ball game eventually later on in the summer.
1 ball, 2 strikes the count.
And Howard, you talked about leadoff men getting on. We threw the stat out the other night, 52 and 13 when Wilson gets on base more than 2 times or 2 times. For them to get some runs on a board, this would be a good starting place. I mean, he just changes the whole complexion. You know the next hitter is going to get fastballs, because if you don't throw fastballs, it's a double.
You know, that's it. You know, on balance, if he singles, it's a double. He's going to go to second, but unfortunately, they're at 2 out. What a glorious shot from the Goodyear blimp.
Goodyear blimp. Enterprise. Jim Maloney, cameraman Charlie Mitchell.
The great thing about the Tigers, what they've come to mean to this city, is they've been an integral part of the city's whole urban rehabilitation. They're part of the city. They've made it one of the most spirited and prideful cities in America.
Well, I learned from the renovation in downtown Baltimore, you feel good about yourself, you feel good about your city, and that's certainly been one of the great renovations in I guess, our American country.
To left field, off the bat of Wilson, right into the glove of Herndon. And Milt Wilcox is not allowed to hit through 3 after 2.5. Tigers 1, Royals nothing. And as we go to the bottom of the 3rd, he talks about his problems facing left-handed pitching.
I always thought I could hit left-handers. It was a matter of just leaving me in there and letting me see the pitches, recognize the pitches, and I thought I could always hit. I had some tough times. Sparky and I went through some tough times. Him and I disagreed. He's the boss, so I was platooned, and to me, when my manager calls me back against a lefty, he's telling me that I can't hit one. So maybe I developed somewhat of an attitude that when I wasn't there against a lefty, I said, wait a minute, this guy told me the other day that I can't hit him. Now he's put me there against him. So I did, you know, like I said, I didn't have that good of an attitude.
Kirk Gibson, who will follow Trammell, leadoff batter here in the bottom of the 3rd inning. 0-1 the count. Trammell walked in the 1st, having a good championship series. Gibson and Parrish to follow. Tigers lead 1-0. Trammell hits it to deep left field. All the way back goes Motley and makes the catch in front of the auxiliary scoreboard. So he got good wood on it, but it stays in.
I'll tell you, Jim, Lee Brand has been living on the precipice of peril. First 2 innings, now that shot to start the 3rd.
Well, there's 1 away.
What do you think?
Well, it's still 1-0. I'll give him that.
That's what they say about him. He keeps them in the game.
Well, he doesn't strike out too many guys. He doesn't walk too many guys. He's going to make them hit the ball.
Look at the series this man has had.
Gibson talking about facing left-handed pitching. Talked about, Howard, the problems he had with Sparky. Last year he hit 150 against lefties, and then this year he came back and hit 265 with 9 home runs against left-handed pitching.
He's getting there. That's the way Duke Snyder was originally. But he kept improving himself, and there came a day when Red Barber commented that he was beginning to hit lefties like Dixie Walker.
Well, the thing about Gibson is that you can see his stance from the center field camera. He's right on top of the plate. He doesn't really give in very much. And we saw on that 425-foot home run, which a lot of guys would have just hit for a fly ball, he hit right over the center field fence. He's got tremendous strength. So even if he bails a little bit, he's still strong enough to hit it out of this ballpark and just about any ballpark in the American League.
That was some blow in Royal Stadium.
It wasn't a bad pitch. He just hit it 425 feet.
3-0 pitch. He's taking all the way here and looks at a strike, and the count is 3-1.
Take another guy that's not quite as strong. It's just a fly ball. I mean, that's all it was. It just happened to go 425 feet.
Fastest pitch in the whole ball game thus far has been 88 miles per hour.
And now Gibson is aboard, so Kirk is at first base, and he can run. Great speed. He's a great line receiver. All-American. Michigan State scored 24 touchdowns there. Played 1 year of baseball for the Spartans. Led the Tigers this year in steals with 27 as Parrish comes up.
Well, it's a situation. You have a guy on the mound with a mediocre move, and you have a guy at first with excellent speed. Does he go or doesn't he go? I think you might wait till the next batter only to see if Parrish doesn't hit one out. You wonder what this does to the pitcher? It just changes your rhythm. You got to get, if you know the guy's going to run, you better get rid of the ball a little bit quicker if you have any chance of throwing him out. So maybe you don't have the smoothness that you would have if nobody was on.
One ball, no strikes to count. Tigers 1, Royals nothing. Gibson this year became the first Tiger in history to hit 20 or more homers, steal 20 or more bases. Became very close to the 30-30 club, which has some pretty exclusive company. Like I mentioned, at 27, he had 29 steals, 27 home runs to go along with that. Looked like he turned it over a little bit.
Yep.
Well, when Gibson came up, Al, what he would do is just outrun the baseball. I mean, had a basic rudiments of the game, but that's about all. He said that in an interview the other day. He just came up here. He didn't know how to throw the ball, didn't know how to catch it, didn't know how to study a pitcher. He would just outrun it. Pure speed.
That's when he talked about, there he goes.
Swung on and missed, and the throw nearly hits him, goes into center. That looks like a replay of the last time Slot threw down to second. So it'll be a stolen base and another error charged to Slot. And Gibson is at third now with a count 1 ball and 2 strikes.
He's going right on his windup. We talked about the pitcher getting rid of the ball quicker. The Slot knows he has to make a quick throw. And again, White can't get to it. Right into the runner. Man on third and 1 out.
And Gibson really poured it on from second to third. Jordan was 10 steps toward home before Greek Grammar said get back here. Oh, no chance for Frank White.
Now a ball and 2 strikes, and in the infield, there's the alignment. Only Concepcion is deep. White plays at the edge of the grass at second. And the count is 2-2.
This Detroit lineup keeps coming at you, don't they, Jim? There's no rest.
Not too many holes. Just about everybody in the lineup can hit a home run.
Like the old days when you had One after another in this lineup.
Big strikeout.
Oh, that's a biggie.
2 down. Now the infield goes back to normal depth with 2 out. And he's got Herndon to face.
Guys hanging in there. Did Willie Horton used to hurt you?
Well, yeah, one time or the other he did. I mean, he'd come in here. First guy would be Dick McCullough, over 20 home runs. Mickey Stanley, K-line, followed by Horton, followed by Freehand, followed by Northrup. Don Wirt.
He was your out guy.
Not, yeah, and then Eddie Brinkman. Pretty good lineup.
Herndon swinging and missing.
And the batting coach of the present Tigers, Gates Brown, one of the great pinch hitters while I played. Not too many holes, just like this lineup. I mean, just think what would happen if the Tigers went out and got a third baseman in the free agent market. Even though they do talk about using Johnson next year.
1 ball, 1 strike.
Give Leibrandt credit. That was some big strikeout. He continues to live dangerously, but they're in the ball game, and that's what matters.
Excuse me, Howard, he made the same pitch he made to Herndon the time before. Good blown away pitch.
Little looper to the right side, but White will handle it, and Leibrandt again works out of a jam. No runs, no hits. Gibson left at third after 3. Tigers 1, Royals nothing. And he was hit by a fly ball in Anaheim. He talks about the incident.
It was a ball in the sun. We were winning about 11-1, and I was determined to catch the baseball, and I was fighting with the sun. I flipped the glasses up and down, and eventually up trying to find the baseball. And when it came down, it hit me right on top of the head, and for a minute I thought I might have lost my eye. I was very fortunate. I was out for about 10 days. I had what was called vertigo, which is a
chronic dizziness.
Exactly. And when I came back, you know, naturally it took a little time to try to find my stroke.
Scary.
Have to be. That's something, you know, you see a lot of outfielders lose fly balls in the sun, but rarely do you see them get conked with it.
What you have to wonder about here, Jim, you've seen it so many times. Tigers have had so many opportunities in just 3 innings. Lost them. I won't say they squandered them. Give Leibrandt credit. When you have low opportunities, it frequently comes back to haunt you.
Well, it certainly can. They, as you said, have somewhat of an opportunity to put them away.
Well, Monday Night Football. The Niners with Joe Montana, Dwight Clark, Eddie Solomon, the rest of them, against the Giants with Lawrence Taylor and the rapidly improving Hedden, the linebacker from Clemson. Maybe a healthy Carson. Maybe.
Pat Sheridan leading off in the 4th. 1 ball, 1 strike. And he fouls it straight back in the count. 1-2. Sheridan, Brett, and Orta. 4th inning. Kansas City is in 1 base runner. Malboni walked in the 2nd. Wilcox without a complete game this year. Again by design. Sparky Anderson wanting and normally getting 6 or 7 innings from him. And then to either Lopez or Hernandez. Grounded to the right side. It's Evans fielding, shoveling to Wilcox, covering for the out. 1 away here in the 4th inning.
Milt had to get over there swiftly, and he did.
Second time they've made the play 3-1. 1 gone, and George Brett comes up, flying to right in the 1st inning.
This might be the time to get that run back and maybe more. You got Brett, you got Orta, you got Motley, Malboni.
Well, it still goes back to what we talked about earlier, not getting that leadoff man on. You know, as a pitcher, the most important thing to me was to get the first man you faced in an inning out. Once you do that, it makes the inning a little bit easier.
1-0. Amazing that Wilcox is even here. Tigers really told Milt they were not that interested in re-signing him last year. He was about to test the free agent market. Went to Hawaii on a vacation, came back through Chicago. Picked up a newspaper. The paper said the Tigers are interested in reopening negotiations with Wilcox. First Milt found out about it.
2-0 on George. This is the spot. Bad hitter to get behind on, Jim.
Well, that's when he becomes a home run hitter. Otherwise, he's content with signaling and going the other way.
Liner to left, and that's a base hit and maybe more, and it's the first hit for Kansas City. Now, Brett, normally, if he was 100% healthy, might have tried to stretch it for 2, but with that hamstring, he's not taking any chances at all. Settles for a single, 56 total bases, and that breaks Reggie Jackson's league championship series record in that department.
Fastball outer half of the plate. Wilcox made a good pitch as far as keeping it in the park, but Brett just pinged it to left. Something he can do with a lot of regularity.
Orta is the batter.
That's what happens when you get behind, George. You're asking for trouble. This, a dangerous hitter, without question.
Ball 1. George Orta spent the last 4 years with 4 different teams. White Sox, Cleveland, Dodgers, Toronto, and then he came over to Kansas City. 1-1.
The thing that hurt George is when he was with the Dodgers, really didn't get to play that much. Last year at Toronto, hit 10 home runs, but didn't hit as high an average as he normally hits. So I've always felt he's been a much better hitter when he played for the White Sox. When they had the artificial turf, he hit over 300. When they put the grass back in, he went down to 270, 280.
That's when there was some who thought, that time at the White Sox you were talking about, when some thought in the league that he had the capacity to one day lead the league in batting.
Well, compact stroke. Not above average power, but can hit home runs. Hits the ball where it's pitched.
Hit 316 in 74 with the White Sox. Fouls it away. Off to the left and back out of play.
Kid who amazed me hitting home runs this year was Mattingly of the Yankees. When we began the season, you weren't with us opening game. We began it right here. And I was talking with Earl Weaver about Mattingly. He said, Howard, he's a good, compact hitter, but he'll never have power. And then later he said, well, somehow or other, he does have enough power. And 24 home runs is enough power.
Well, he matured as a hitter. I mean, he could always hit for an average. But what he did was, in the situation when the pitcher gets behind him, 2-0, 3-1, he looked for pitches that he could hit out of Yankee Stadium and some of the other park. He just became a more mature, studious hitter.
And Orta's down.
Well,
number 3 for Milt Wilcox. 2 out in the 4th inning.
big pitch for Milt. Now, Darrell Motley. He went for the low strike.
Pretty good curveball. It's a pretty good philosophy to have, is to get ahead of the hitter and just throw that curveball just a little bit low, take a little bit off it, and Milt can do that. He throws 2 kinds of curveballs, one a little bit harder than the other.
First wave of the night is making its way around Tiger Stadium as Motley takes a strike. 0-1.
The Tiger lineup resembles the wave.
An ongoing wave.
Yep.
Sometimes reaching tidal proportions. It's an interesting thing about playoff and World Series crowds. Don't you think historically they're a lot less noisy than some of the regular season crowds you might see?
No question, and part of it is you don't see a lot of the same people you do in the regular season at the games. That's why.
Well,
tickets become a lot harder to get. Earl Wilson once pitched a no-hitter. Remember the 1968 Tigers?
Good-looking man. Strong pitcher.
Oh, he used to pinch hit for the Tigers. Excellent hitter. He went off the 440 sign off me once for a double.
68 Tigers.
Every time you talk about batters, you describe the hits they got. You know you're going to be a Hall of Famer. Why?
Well, you know why I remembered, Howard? I threw him a low fastball, hit it, and it's a long way. Center field is 440 here. Hit it off the top of the fence, and then helped me out by trying to stretch it into a triple. We threw him out. I came up the next inning and hit a double, and I was smart enough to stay at second.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. Swung on and missed for strike 3. So Wilcox has struck Motley out twice. has struck out 4 in the game. No runs. The Royals get their first hit and lead 1. Middle of the 4th. Only were the Tigers in the World Series. They faced the Cubs. And the folks here wouldn't mind a rematch. Cubs lead 2 games to 1, and the Tigers lead 2 games to nothing, and lead in this one 1-0.
But you must admit, the Padres look like a different ballpark in their home orchard.
You know, it's it's funny.
All right, there is Richie Phillips, the negotiator for the Umpires Union, with Lee McPhail, the head of the Player Relations Committee. I noted at the outset of our program tonight that it was Lee McPhail who negotiated the prior 2 contracts with the Umpires Union. He is a very influential man, experienced, and with Chub Feeney, the National League president, as you look to the called strike, ensconced on the West Coast, Lee and Chub are old friends, and Lee paid a visit.
Fouled away. Maloney giving chase, and it's drifting back, and he drops the ball. That one, when it left the bat, looked like it was drifting back into the seats. Balboni appeared to almost be giving up on it, but still had room, and Garbey is still alive.
Well, Jim Palmer will tell you that the height of these stands normally prevents wind impact. Nothing like Wrigley Field conditions with the wind factor. But right there, it did affect it, didn't it, Jim?
Well, the wind does swirl, and also if you look at the gravel, you can lose your footing very easily here. And it looked like Steve slipped a bit, really let the ball go back over his head.
That's charged as an error against Balboni, and that's 3 errors in the game now.
And just to finish off what we were saying about the umpire strike situation, Phillips met for 2 hours today at our hotel with American League President Bobby Brown and Lee, and there's no resolution yet of the umpire strike.
I have an idea about something that might settle it. Lee McPhail, former president of the United States of the American League.
Yeah.
Maybe he's offering them all the fine money that Earl Weaver contributed over those years with 89 expulsions. Think that would settle it?
Fines were pretty low, though, for most of those, weren't they? How about the Dick Williams fine this year? $10,000.
I think it'll be settled, just a conjecture, before the World Series.
Scoring summary, 2nd inning. Tigers getting their run. Garbey and Evans with singles. Castillo hitting into a force. And down he goes here. So he gets a second life when Balboni can't handle a foul pop, but he strikes out. 1 away.
Just a little tailing fastball. Last time Garbey hit it right up the middle. This time made a little bit better pitch. And that's a big out because, as we said, Lee Brandt's keeping him in the game. A lot of times you have a little bit of letdown when a guy doesn't make a play behind you. He came back and got the strikeout.
Here's Lemon, hitless in the series, but he scored the only run of the game tonight.
Jim, does Lee Brandt remind you very much of Paul Splitoff?
Well, he really does.
Lemon hits a high fly ball to left field and deep, but it's going to hang for Motley to make the catch. 2 away in the 4th inning.
One of those fly balls here at Detroit that your heart flutters a little bit, especially with the wind blowing out to left. But normally the wind, as I said, doesn't affect the ball here. It's just not that far. You have the high stadiums.
Interesting that Lee Brandt's on the same team that Paul played for and may yet come back to if his health comes back. But I find a great similarity between them.
Well, their pitch selection is a lot too.
Yeah, same kind of pitcher.
Turn the ball away, throw the slider in on the right-hander, and just change speeds.
Up high to Evans. 1-0 the count on Darrell.
Lee Brandt has a big edge over you. Much bigger one over me. And out.
What's that?
Turned 28 yesterday. It was a very good year.
There's another birthday today. Aurelio Lopez is 36 today.
Well, he says he's 36.
2-1 the count. Chet Gordy's birthday, I believe, is next week. He'll be 62.
40?
Yep.
Doesn't look that old.
Never passed
I
the
would
ball.
say he's a day over 60 myself.
2-2 the count on Evans.
Leibrandt thus far having a very good inning. Looking like he's very much in control.
Two pitch. Just missing for ball 3, so the count is full on the number 8 hitter. 1 run, 3 hits, no errors for the Tigers. No runs, 1 hit, and 3 errors for the Royals. 2 out, bases empty. Bottom of the 4th inning. And Evans is on. So Darrell draws a walk. 3rd walk given up by Leibrandt. The other 2 did not hurt him.
In no inning has he retired 3 men in a row.
Castillo grounded into a force in the 2nd inning, and that drove in the only run of the game.
Well, Al, in this situation, when you know your team's not scoring, you sometimes are a little bit finer. You'll maybe gamble, walk a guy, especially a guy like Evans that has home run power, to pitch to a guy as a single hitter because you know you can't give up another run.
And they send Evans, and Slott's throw again winds up in center field.
Having a terrible night, Slot.
Evans got tangled up. Slott won't get an error this time, only because it's scored simply as a stolen base for Evans. So, again, Sparky Anderson's aggressiveness, the aggressive nature, he sends Evans on that very first pitch to try to get the man into scoring position.
Well, you know what this indicates to me, Al? It indicates that Leibrandt does not have a good move. They have picked something up, and they're going on his first move because Darrell Evans does not have good speed, and they're really not running on Slot. They're running on the pitcher. I mean, he just doesn't have the move to keep them close at first base.
Granting that, you're completely right. Nonetheless, Slot is throwing poorly.
Well, keep in mind, Howard, he knows that his only chance of throwing the runner out is to really get the ball down there as quick as he can.
Evans is
You're right, he hasn't made very many good throws, but I think he's rushing them.
Well, I think he would have had him out on this one with a good throw.
No doubt about it.
Evans is not a speed merchant, but Darrow did get a good jump on Leibrandt. He only stole 2 bases in the regular season.
Meanwhile, it's 0-2 on Marty Castillo. And let's see if Leibrandt can escape damage again. Tell you who quelled the Tigers nicely this year. An old teammate of Jim Palmer's, Mike Flanagan.
Beat him 3 times at an 0.27 ERA. About a quarter of a run a game.
1 ball, 2 strikes. George Anderson, 50 years old. Roger Craig in the background, his pitching coach, and Craig saying that he's 90% sure he's going to retire after the season.
Roger
saying that.
I hope
That's
not.
down 10% from the middle of the season. He said he was 100% sure then.
Well, he said it has everything to do with his family. He wants to watch his kids and his grandkids grow up and spend more time with them.
I know that feeling.
1-2 pitch, just missing. And Anderson has put together a great group of coaches. Craig, a former manager. As you look at Evans at second. His top lieutenant, Alex Gramish, third base coach, former manager of Milwaukee. Crowd really has that wave going right now, creating that response. Sometimes you'll see from that angle that camera appears to be shaking, or it is shaking. It's not your set. Reason is the upper deck feels like an earthquake when all these people get up and down like that, shaking the camera position as the wave rolls by.
It's still the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor that takes credit for starting the wave in this country.
Now, the University of Washington takes credit, and also the Oakland A's and Crazy George are taking credit for it. So I don't know who gets the credit.
Frankly,
I agree with you. 2-2 pitch. Low. They all talk about the day the wave started. I think a more important day maybe the one it ends. Pitch, swung on and missed, so wave or no wave. They take care of Castillo here in the 4th. Tigers don't score. To the 5th we go. 1-0 Detroit. Balboni hit .244 during the year, 28 home runs to lead the team, 77 RBIs. He starts it, 5th inning. Tigers lead 1-0, and Wilcox goes to strike. Balboni, White, and Slaught in the 5th. Oh, 1 pitch is a strike, and the count is 0-2. Wilcox has struck out 4, including Motley twice. 2 base runners for the Royals. Balboni walking in the 2nd, Brett singling in the 4th. And Balboni has struck out, so that is 3 successive strikeouts and 5 total for Milt Wilcox.
We talked about the split-fingered fastball. Watch that ball go down there. One of his best pitches. In fact, the last 2 strikeouts have been on that pitch. The ball comes up looking like a fastball and just tumbles, and the bottom drops out. Tough pitch to handle.
Frank White flying to left. White hit 3 home runs in this park this season, including a grand slam off Wilcox. 1-0 the count.
Well, it's still early, but somebody's going to have to do something for Kansas City.
They were silent in game 1. They were basically silent until the latter innings in game 2, and cashed in on some breaks to tie.
So let's face it, we talked all along in this series about how the relief pitching for both teams are probably the most important assets they have, or at least one of the most important. We're pretty soon getting into Willie Hernandez time for the Tigers.
Broken bat. Barrel the bat winds up near the 3rd base coaching box, and that's Mike Ferraro who will retrieve it.
What's inside that bat?
They've never accused White of it, to my knowledge, of putting cork inside.
Well, maybe that's how he hit 17, which is about 6 more than he's ever hit.
Take a peek at it.
It's a funny thing when you're pitching. Sometimes you throw. I had Tony Armas, who I think hit over 40 home runs this year, 36 last
43.
year. 43. Hit a ball with hardly a swing, no sound, about 440 feet over the center field fence. And I went up to look at the bat, and Ricky Henderson was there, and he said, "Oh, he just got a new order of bats, nothing wrong." I said, "No way." The ball. I mean, normally when a ball is hit well, you can hear the sound. When a bat is corked and they hit it, it just goes about 40 feet farther, but there's not as much noise. I always thought home runs were noisy. Maybe that's because the fans always cheered.
Grounded foul, and the count 1 ball, 2 strikes.
What was that Dan Ford, Mickey Heath incident? That was a beauty. When Mickey grabbed the bat, and Dan got in the tangle with him over the bat, and there was the umpire. George Steinbrenner brought me up to his office one day, said, "I want you to see this." Bat had Reggie Jackson as for now. Take it apart, it's corking. He said, "There's the proof." I said, "How do I know Reggie ever used this?"
Ford wound up getting suspended for a cork bat. Still a ball and 2 strikes on Frank White. Frank White was a graduate. Remember when the Royals came into existence and they put together that baseball
Training
academy?
School, yep.
And it's been disbanded, but White and UL Washington were a couple of guys who came out of there. Frank, the most prominent graduate. Fouled away. And White, Washington, Rodney Scott was another fellow who went to the academy. They tried to keep it going, but it just wound up costing too much money.
Well, that shot's from our Goodyear Blimp Enterprise, Pompano Beach, Florida. The pilot is Jim Maloney, Vienna, Virginia. Cameraman, your old friend Charlie Mitchell.
Charlie Mitchell.
Alfalfa.
Fouled away. Charlie Mitchell was the fellow, remember the Olympics, the crane that was twice as high as the outside of the Coliseum. That was Charlie Mitchell, about 9,000 feet in the air.
I always wondered if you'd have the guts to go up there.
Yeah, right.
To call the shot put.
1-2. And White swings late and misses. And Milt Wilcox, not a strikeout pitcher, all of a sudden has rung up 4 in a row.
As you suggested, Our storyline at the beginning was relievers, Jim. What's happening?
Still early, Howard.
Yeah, that's true. They're hanging in there, I tell you.
Well, he's making some great pitches. Another split-fingered fastball. I don't think he's trying to strike out the hitters. He's just making some great pitches, and they're not hitting them.
And Lee Brandt hangs tough.
Here is Slaught. Grounded slowly to third, and Castillo goes across the diamond. Milt Wilcox in 5 innings has allowed just 1 single and a walk. He's rolling along, and so are the Tigers. We're halfway through it. Detroit 1, Kansas City 0. Yeah, what do you think?
I think that Texas has an exceptional team. Can beat most anybody at the college level.
The way it looks right now, Joe Paterno would second that motion after last week. Bottom of the 5th inning here, as the top of the order comes up for the Tigers. Lou Whitaker takes a strike. Whitaker, Trammell, Gibson.
Would you start somebody working in the bullpen next inning, Jim?
Well, I might think so. I had talked to, usually the guy they would use in middle relief would be Joe Beckwith. Hurt his elbow earlier in the year and kind of favored that and strained his shoulder. I'd give him a little bit extra time. You just can't let the game get out of hand at this point. But Lee Brandt, Charlie's really pitching a fine game. He's doing exactly what Saberhagen was doing. Keep him in the game and hope that his team can come back. But so far, to be honest, they haven't shown any indication that they can handle Wilcox at all. But 1 run isn't much.
In the air to left field. Motley started back and then comes in to make the catch. 1 away.
He flirted with that ball. Almost overran it.
0 for 3 is Whitaker tonight as he goes back to the dugout, and Alan Trammell climbs in. Walk, fly to left. 0 for 1.
This is when you think back to those early inning missed opportunities by the Tigers. Again, give Lee Brandt credit for that.
Alan Trammell. Talk about Trammell and Whitaker and Parrish.
There's your high strike zone right there.
Trammell and Whitaker and Parrish coming up with the Tigers in late 77. Their rookie years were technically 78, and they were all officially rookies, but they were called up toward the end of the season. Trammell and Whitaker really inseparable. The two of them made their major league debut in the same game at Boston, September 9th, 1977. Whitaker had 3 hits. Came up through the minors together, their final year in the minor leagues.
When you talk about good teams, you talk about strength up the middle. You got Parrish behind the plate, 2 Gold Glovers at second and short, and Whitaker and Trammell, and then Lemon in center.
Squibb back to the mound, and Lee Brandt throws to first for the out.
Looking better and better.
2 down. Lee Brandt still has not had a 1-2-3 inning. Tell you what, it's about cold enough now for Santa Claus. Started out in the mid-50s, and right now it may be in the low 50s, but with the wind whipping around, pretty chilly.
Crowd was celebrating even before the game in a festive mood. Now they're growing a little bit rested. They want some runs. So do the Tigers, but there's the Goodyear blimp. Charlie Mitchell has left the crane.
No acrophobia. 2-0 the count. That's about as much of an expression as you will ever see on the face of Lee Brandt. Well, that half grimace.
He's concerned. Gibson hit the ball very hard the first time. He walked him the next time, and he's gotten behind him both the last 2 times. And he can't afford that home run.
Just took something off it, gets it in for a strike. 2-1.
I really think that if you look at the kind of stuff he has probably a little bit more effective against right-handers because he has more pitches for him. In fact, over the course of the year, right-handers had more trouble with him than the left-handers, which is kind of unusual. Most left-handed pitchers you think would automatically be able to get left-handers out better, but he hasn't been able to do that.
Gibson's been on twice tonight, a walk and a single.
Well, plus good pitchers have good memories, and he was paying attention, keeping the chart in Kansas City. He saw Saberhagen make a good pitch in the middle of the plate. He saw the home run and the double. He's got respect for this guy.
And he strikes Gibson out. So Leibrandt has his first 1-2-3 inning. He ends the fifth with his fifth strikeout.
Looking better and better.
And the Tigers continue to lead in the ballgame in Game 3 as they try to wrap up the pennant. 1-0 Detroit. Back with more after this word from your local stations.
With the no wind-up delivery, recall that it was Bullet Bob Turley. You're old enough to remember him, Jim, who regained control or gained control by the no wind-up. But the man who really made it famous after that was Don Larson.
Yep.
With the perfect game in the '56 series.
One of my teammates, the year I broke in, 1965. Good pitcher, nice man.
October 8th, 1956. Onyx Concepcion in the sixth inning. It's the first pitch to third. Castillo drops to his knees, but guns him down after he gets up.
Really got a rifle.
Oh, he does.
Fine thrower.
Good example of it right there, too.
Well, when you play, obviously you can see him way in for the bunt. Tries to stay down, not exactly the picture perfect way of catching a ground ball, but he does catch it.
See
and
that
as you said, he's got a strong arm.
See that ball roll around that glove?
Here is Willie Wilson taking inside ball one.
Well, they've got to. They've simply got to get something started here, and Willie's the guy to do it.
Talking about Castillo, the other position Marty plays is catcher, so you can tell with that arm, he's the kind of guy that would not necessarily be too easy to steal against. 1-1. Wilcox set the record. Think about that. 1970, when he's a rookie with Cincinnati, strikes out 4 consecutive Pirates, and then 14 years later with Coleman, Candelaria, and Ryan sharing the record. Strike.
How'd you like that pitch, huh?
We talked about the 2 curveballs. That was his slow one. Just caught the outside corner.
Just floated up there.
Well, he's been doing it all, and you wonder how a guy 14 years later can still be striking guys out. He's come up with 2 different curveballs, a split finger fastball, which we just saw right there for strike 3.
And strikeout number 7 for Milt Wilcox. Matter of fact, Wilcox did it 14 years ago to the day.
Their ball just kind of goes down. He swings right over it. And you can thank Roger Craig for teaching him that pitch. No wonder they want to sign him to a 2-year contract.
Tigers want to sign Craig again. There's no question that Roger can remain here. There's little doubt about that. It's what he wants to do. I know that Petrie and Morris and Wilcox are pleading with Sparky to figure out a way to keep Craig here.
Well, he also talked about his helping. Of course, he did manage for a couple of years down in San Diego. Each steal signs helps Sparky with strategy decisions. It speaks something of Sparky allowing one of his coaches to have that much authority.
Sparky is great at that.
Certainly not threatened. A lot of managers are very threatened to give their coaches too much credit.
Right.
We talked about the way Sparky delegates authority and lets his people execute the other, like with Al Kaline and Kurt Gibson. Kaline wasn't even on the coaching staff.
Takes a secure kind of man to do that.
2 balls and no strikes on Sheridan. And that's ball 3, and the count is 3-0. Wilcox tonight has walked only 1. Alboni in the second inning.
Well, this is the wrong guy to walk from Milton's point of view, because George Brett is up next, and there he is.
Well, it just exemplifies the job that Leibrandt's done. He's kept him in a position where if he does walk Sheridan, the winning run comes to the plate.
And he did.
So Sheridan is on, and with 2 out here in the 6th inning, we'll take a look at Brett, who owns the only Kansas City hit. He flied to right in the 1st inning and then singled in the 4th inning. And he is now 3 for 11 in the playoffs.
And should Kansas City move ahead, you will see constant action, I suspect, in the bullpen. You agree, Jim?
I would think so. Of course, the way that Charlie Liebrandt's pitching, I would think that Hauser would be very content with letting him pitch till he gets in trouble. But in the situation they are, they can't allow him to get into trouble that can't be quickly quelled by Mr. Quisenberry.
7 strikeouts for Milt Wilcox. Season high this year was 8. So he's been in fine fettle, but here a test.
Tigers on top, 1-0. Only run of the game in the second inning. Singles by Garbey and Evans, and a ground out by Castillo. A force play produced it. Brett gets under it and lifts it in the air to left center field. And Chet Lemon makes the catch. So that's that for KC in the 6th. And at the end of 5 1/2, the frustration announced for the Royals, 1-0 Tigers. Tigers on top, 1-0. Howard spoke with Dick Hauser earlier.
So Dick Hauser vouchsafes that which Jim Palmer said at the very beginning of the telecast.
Lance Parrish comes up in the bottom of the 6th inning, facing Liebrandt. Middle of the order, Herndon and Garbey to follow. 1-0 Detroit, trying to sweep the series.
Actually, if I had known he said that, I would have tried to be a little more original, Howard.
No, you had it, Peg.
No, well, you would think that would figure. I mean, they might surprise us. Both go 9.
Toward the middle, but Concepcion ranges to his left and bounces it, but Balboni digs it out.
He is very good at picking up that ball in from the dirt.
1 away. Tigers trying to keep a trend going. The American League East been very successful in the playoffs in recent years. Have a look at Balboni digging it out. East teams have won the playoffs 3 years in a row and 8 times in the last 9 years, trying to make it 9 out of 10. The only blemish for the East would be when Kansas City beat the Yankees in 1980. The Royals, as we pointed out earlier, still have not held the lead at any time in the playoffs.
There has never been a playoff series where one team has never led from beginning to the end of the series. The Royals are in the running for that one. That's one they don't want to win.
1 ball and 1 strike to count.
Well, because of this man right here, a 2-run home run will negate that last graphic we saw.
It's really...
And he's doing his job. That's all you can do. I mean, you just don't know when you go out there. And we talked about Milt Wilcox. Why did he win 17 games? Well, they got 6 runs a game for him, or at least they averaged that. You don't know when you go out to the mound if you're going to have great stuff, bad stuff, if your team's going to score.
But you must remember this. Wilcox has been sensational in this ballpark.
That he has.
2-2 on Larry Herndon. Garbey on deck. 1 out and no one on. Bottom of the 6th inning.
Not one pitch in the 90s tonight. Fastest pitch still 88 miles per hour.
And also, that's, excuse me, Al, that's being computed by the Jugs gun, which is about maybe 3 to 5 miles per hour, a little bit faster than the normal gun a lot of teams use. So we are not seeing overpowering pitchers. We are seeing guys that are not throwers. Finesse pitchers. But pitchers is the most important key word there. They know how to pitch, and they're using all their pitches to be effective.
3-2 the count. In the Tiger bullpen, Dave Rozema and Doug Baer are the 2 right-handers, and those are 2 fellas who, if they were going to get into the game, would have been in by now. So what they're really doing is just getting in some work. Because you're to the point now where you're thinking Lopez and Hernandez only. And Herndon is on. So Larry draws a walk with 1 out in the 6th inning. And Barbaro Garbey comes up, singled and struck out. And in the series, he's 3 for 8.
Somewhere along the way, Chet Lemon may explode because his last turn at bat, he He hit that high one that makes the pitcher's heart flutter. Caught in left field. He's just too good a hitter to be shackled this way, especially by a left-hander.
And he is on deck here. Herndon at first. Larry has pretty good speed. He's really never manifested it and been a stolen base threat. Along the lines of Lemon in a way. Strike. You're mentioning Lemon as you look at Beckwith throwing in the Kansas City bullpen. One of the oddities about Chet Lemon is that here's a guy who gets as good a jump as anybody on a ball in center field, so you know he's quick. And yet he went 2 years with 1 stolen base.
Meantime, the viewers have seen Beckwith in the bullpen working, just as Dick Howser said he would do.
Came over from the Dodgers. He's talking to Lee May. He said it's amazing. Beckwith has the best stuff on our ball club. And that's quite a statement. You talk about Gubazov, but he just has great command of like 3 pitches.
Well,
and he's been very instrumental, as Dick Howser said, in getting them to where they are, which is on the brink of elimination.
You mentioned Gubazov, who does, everybody says, have the most stuff. And Sparky was very forthright in analyzing Gubazov. He said, Howard, I really think he's 2 years away from real achievement.
One ball, 1 strike, the count on Herndon. Couple of streaks as you look at the move of Lebrand.
It's really bordering on being a balk. If you bring that right foot back across the pitching rubber, you're supposed to have to go home. But this may be one of the advantages of not having major league umpires. Right. I would think if they're running on you like they have, I'd try a balk move. I would think you'd probably be able to get away with it.
Yep. A couple of things you don't figure to see with the amateur umpires are balks and ejections. They're just trying to keep it as quiet as possible. Grounded foul on the count 2-2. Talking about a couple of streaks, Sparky Anderson trying to win his 11th consecutive postseason game tonight. He managed the Reds when they won the 7th game of the 75 series, swept the playoffs in 76, swept the series in 76 for 8, and he's won 2 playoff games and tries to make it a 3rd tonight here for 11. Told you about Dick Howser the other night. Howser is now 0-8 in his postseason career. And there they are, most consecutive losses in postseason games. Bill McKechnie back in that era. Miller Huggins with 8. Howser right there.
You know who beat Huggins in 23 with his 8th consecutive loss? Casey Stink on a home run.
He hit it?
Mm-hmm.
Grounded to 3rd. Brett to White. Back to 1st. They get him. It's a double play. So they get Garbe and get out of the inning. 5-4-3. So Lebrand doing his job and very much keeping the Royals in the game. Another look here. To take care of the Tigers, and so to the 7th we go. Tigers 1, Royals nothing.